I like to tell stories. I like to write requirements. I like to communicate. And I'm going to start off today with this story. This is my little girl, Katie, and my niece, Kaylin. Katie's in and applicable to Halloween in their outfits, they like scary stories. And they like me to make up stories at bedtime. So one day I said, "It's late." She goes, "Daddy, I want a story." "It's late." "Daddy, I want a story." "It's late. I don't have time to tell you a story. You need to go sleep." "Daddy, can you tell me a short one?" I said, "Okay, I'm going to tell you a story. But it's short." And she goes, "Okay." And she pulls the cover up over her head. Once upon a time, there was a very short story. And it was very, very scary. The end. Daddy, there were no people in it. And they didn't do anything. That was her condemnation of my story. And I'm here to tell you that your requirements are a lot like my story. My requirements for a long time were a lot like that story. In short, they weren't very good. They were kind of atrocious in many ways. I haven't read your requirements. Your requirements may be great. My requirements, my stories, my communication was not very good. That was our job, was to communicate. My job as a BA is to communicate, and it wasn't very good. My name is Jeffrey Davidson, and I'm here to tell you that your projects can be better with tiny stories. It doesn't have to be that bad. First, I want to start off with you guys shouting out something to me for what your requirements be. Like if you were in training, and they were saying, a requirement should follow a certain grammatical structure. The system shall. That's something a requirement should be. Who knows of another one?
Clear.
Concise is one. Did I hear something else?
Clear.
Clear is another one.
Complete.
Complete is another one. But I can't hear you. Testable. That's very good. Can we get two more? Thorough. That's good.
Independent.
Independent. That's good. So one of my favorite websites had this list. I think it makes a lot of sense. And I used to send people to this website and teach them how to use this, and all was right with the world. But I had a problem. And the problem was, not everyone got it. It wasn't that understandable. Who's had a problem reading requirements that weren't understandable? Almost every hand here. I didn't ask if you wrote them, I just said read them. Yes, it can be a problem. They weren't understandable. So, my mother loves me a lot. I can't imagine there's much she wouldn't do. And I imagine that when I came home, after I finished my first big software systems requirement document, my SSR, if I were to show her that 250 pages, does my mother love me enough to read that? No, no. My mother loves me a lot. If I were to go to jail for something atrocious, she'd bail me out and be with me every day. She'd come visit me, but she wouldn't read my requirements. When I used to train business analysts, I would say, you need to make sure that there's no typos. And by the way, this chart, you know, the spacing is funny. And they'd get all mad at me. They'd be, Jeffrey, why do I care about that? The important stuff is over here. And why do I care about this typo? And why do I care about how this chart looks? And why do I care about this table? And I would say, because your stakeholders don't want to read your requirements. As a stakeholder, their favorite thing is to find a typo on page 4. And they say, proved I read it. guys are laughing and nodding your heads. Have you seen this before? It's what happens to us. They just want proof that they read the document. Because quite frankly, we're not understandable. We're not all that fun to read. Oh, the boring stuff. So that seems to me to be a pretty big problem. Click. Click. So this guy's Rich Hickey. He invented a couple of software languages. I can't even imagine how difficult it is to invent a software language. Blows my mind. He did a presentation a couple years ago at a conference called Strangely. And the talk was that it's not easy. He said these 4 things I'm going to read you. I won't read you everything in my presentation, but these are really important to me. And the first one is, we can only hope to make reliable those things that we understand. Can you do something reliably if you don't understand it? We can only consider a few things at a time. Now, they say for phone numbers we can memorize roughly 7 digits. Some humans like a little bit fewer, some humans can do a little bit better. As long as we're in the same area code, we don't have to worry about 10. But we can only consider a few things at a time. Intertwined things must be considered together. So if they're related, or if they're intertwined, must be together. So who's ever worked on a software system where systems were intertwined? I think I saw a hand that didn't go up. I don't know where you work, but you can hire me later. That's all. And complexity undermines understanding. What we're doing is complex. This is what a BA's job is. This is to understand all those things that everyone else doesn't get. When I was hiring business analysts, I would talk to the recruiting manager. And I would say, I want to hire the very smartest people you've ever met in your life. And they're like, well, how smart? I said, how about top 5%? And they're, Jeffrey, that's a really high bar. I said, I know, I'm not sure it's high enough. And they'd say, why do you need to hire the top 5% of the smartest people that come through the door to be a business analyst? And my response was, well, when stakeholders come to us with a project, the scope is often a little bit undefined, or confused, or conflicting. Okay, so we have to help the executive sort it out. Then we have to go understand the business process. How does the work get done? Then we have to translate that into understanding for the developers to build. And oftentimes, we have to change what they're building so along the way, and we have to fix the process, because that's not working either. And then we have to make sure that when it's all done, when it's all built, when all said there, that we then meet the objectives of what was going on. So, other than like the executives of the company, I think the smartest people in the building should be the business analysts. And we would talk, and eventually I would settle on the top 25%, 1 in 4. We had to take an online test that if you were in the top 25%, then I would look at your resume. And every time a new recruiter came in, they would call a meeting with me and say, Jeffrey, we want to talk to you about this 75% that you're just not hiring. I said, I know. I think it should be hired too, don't you? And we go through the whole thing again. What we do as business analysts isn't easy. What we do is what the smart folks do. What we do is making sense of things. What we do is make sure things are understandable so we can get value from that. Can you get value from lack of understanding? Does that even make sense? No. Value comes from understanding. And with that, what I learned is that there's no difference between those. Requirements and understanding. If I write a requirement and it isn't understandable, what good have I done? You can answer the question. If I write a requirement that isn't understandable, does it make a blank, the blank, the blank get a difference? No. No. So the truth is that our requirements are about understanding. Our requirements are about making sure everything is understood. Our requirements aren't just sharing information. My existing requirements share information, the system shall. But if they're not understandable by anybody but me, maybe a tester, the dev, if he ever reads it, and after I explain it a third time, the value isn't there. So I worked on this, I thought about it, I talked to people, and what I came to understand is that functional requirements are best understood in the context of actors and actions and results. This is really cool, in my mind, that functional requirements are best understood as stories. Now, when I was introduced to this, I'm like, this is kind of funky, and I don't like it. I really did. It was a new company. That's what they were doing. And I'm like, okay, the developers like it, and the testers like it, and the stakeholders like it. But the business analyst, Jeffrey, he didn't like it. So I had to figure out why it was there. And that's really what we're here to talk about. Because, quite frankly, me liking it and writing ununderstandable gobbledygook didn't really add a lot of value. The value comes from understanding. And if it doesn't, your little girl goes, "Daddy!" You don't get anywhere. So, in order to help me with my stories for my little girl, we're going to work on this together. And to do that, I want you to help me tell a better story. And the parts of the story, and you have a handout. The top section has big blank spaces, so you can write this big. A story starts with a context. Once upon a time, that's the start of the context. And then there's an event. Something happens. And then there's a response to that event. At the very core of every fairy tale, of every novel, of every movie, there's some context. Something happens, and there's a response to it. It's as simple as that. I want you to help me tell a better story. Now, I want you to work with the people near you. And so find one or two or three people close to you. Turn. Most of y'all were sitting with friends and coworkers or former colleagues, so this shouldn't be too difficult. And I want you to pick one of these roles. I'm going to come on and collect this. So, okay. Now, here's the next thing. Who are you with? Are you with a friend, a dog, a talking bird? Okay, now pick one. Next. What are you doing? Where are you? Okay, now what happens? And how do you respond? Okay, I've collected all your responses. Okay, so I picked your responses, and now I'm going to tell you the story that we built. And I've taken notes so I can tell it to my daughter tonight. Once upon a time, Princess Marilyn and her friend Mary were flying over the ocean. As they were flying, they heard a horse ask for help and a loud roar. It startled them so much, they slipped and fell into a puddle. What we have there is a story. We have a context, we have an event and a response. There's some condition, you do something, and then something happens. In the Agile extension to the BABOK, section 4.6, is called given, when, then. It's little itty-bitty, discrete bits of functionality. It's functionality that people can understand. Who didn't understand my story? Who didn't? Could you guys repeat to me what happened to Princess Marilyn and her friend Mary? Did you guys can repeat that to me? They were flying. Where were they flying? Over the ocean. They heard a roar and a horse. That's right. These are stories. These things are understandable. Wait. Did I say understandable? Isn't that what requirements are supposed to be? That's where the value comes, is from understanding. This idea of given, when, then is building understanding. Oh my gosh, I love it. It took me a long time to love it, but I finally got it. That's what the structure is all about. It's about building understanding. So what should we be writing? We should be writing about little fine-grained focused bits of behavior. Little stories that fit into a given when then. I now like to tell people all over, everywhere, that this is what BA should be writing. We should be writing something that's understandable. And it should be told in a story format. So, as human beings, as a species, we seem to really get two means of communication. As I've looked at it, and we understand two things. If you want to stick something to people's heads. The first thing is a story. People don't remember facts so much, but they remember stories. The second thing is pictures and drawings. But that's a whole different talk, and we're not going to go into that today. So, what is this given, when, then? It's a bunch of tiny stories using a particular grammatical structure. It's finding places of misunderstanding and then filling with understanding. Who here has ever talked to a stakeholder or a user before to understand more? I see some people not raising their hands. I don't even know why you're in this room. Okay, the IIBA calls that elicitation. So one of the primary ways to do elicitation is to ask people questions. You go there and you sit with them in their cubicle, and you say, what do you do? And they say, first I log on. Can you show that to me? You just sit there and watch. Say, what do you do next? I do this. Okay. What else do you do? Oh, sometimes I click this button. Does anything ever go wrong? Oh, all the time! Sometimes I click the button and the screen goes blank and I don't know what's going on. Should I get a coffee or should I restart it? You guys have had that software before? It was my fault. No. So, this bits of misunderstanding is basically, it's a story. When you're eliciting, you're saying a story. What's the context? Well, you know, I'm talking to a data entry clerk today. His name is James, and he's a very good data entry clerk. That's why he's referred to me. So, I'm sitting with James, and James has been here 2 years. That's his context. And he knows his application pretty well because he uses it 4 days out of 5. So we have all kinds of context there. And what does he do? Well, first he logs on. That's my first story. Ooh, sometimes it doesn't take his name and password. Ooh, that might be another story. Oh, after he logs on, he clicks on the button. What happens? Oh, there's a response. I can write that down. That's the thing. So what we're doing when we're listening is we're building these stories all the time. And we explain what happens with the system to a tester or to a developer or to a stakeholder. We repeat these stories all the time. As BAs, we were trained to turn that into gobbledygook, the system shall statements. There's a problem there, but okay, so my argument is we should stop doing things that aren't understandable. We should start doing things that are very understandable. Basically, I want you to take that conversation you had and capture it so that we can build off of it. It's the best way to move forward. Now, we should do this in business terms and natural language. I think that IT has done one huge well, we've done a lot of things wrong, but there's a huge disservice we've done in the last 30 years. And that is we've trained the business to speak our language. We should be speaking their language. The point isn't that they understand how the software works. The point is that it should work. And they should be able to use it in their terms and their language. Walt Mossberg, who's been writing about technology for the Wall Street Journal for 22 years, had his last column on Monday or Tuesday this week. And his comment was, his first article said, technology is hard and the software doesn't work very well. It's not your fault. It's not the user's fault. It's the software's fault. It's what we do and how we communicate. So, because it's hard, we've then been teaching business people our language. Stop that, please, right away. Don't do that anymore. Use their language, use their terms. If they know what field in the database it is, it means that someone's failed along the way. We want to make it understandable. The truth is that these statements should be so simple, your grandmother could follow the directions and make this up for work. Who's written requirements so simple their grandmother could read and follow? There aren't many hands up. Like 2. If you can write your conversation capture, if you can write this in a given one day, that's using business terms and language, your stakeholders will understand this. Your stakeholders won't have to look for a typo and then say, thank goodness, I found the typo. Because they'll be able to understand what you're trying to build for them and how it's going to add value to them. The other is that these should be generic statements. I don't actually want you to say, James pushes the green button. I want you to say, talk about the role, the data entry clerk was James' title, and that's his role when he's in the program. And when he's selecting the button, he's choosing to go to the report section. So the context is when James has logged into the system. That's our given. When I have logged into the system, and I am this role, given when. When that screen displays, I see options to choose. And I choose to go forward. Not that I pick the button, but I choose to go forward. And I look at the reports, then the report screen shows up. Unless, of course, James doesn't have the right permissions, in which case you have a different story because it says a flashing warning. Security is coming to lock you down. Okay, so this generic behavior means that we shouldn't do design. One of the points here for not doing design is that many software platforms, the platforms the software is running on, is changing. So how many people have an iPhone or an Android phone? Or a tablet? Okay, this is a big deal. You can't tab on an iPad, can you? So if you're used to saying in the design of your requirements, the user's going to tab over to this next section, it's not going to work. There isn't a tab function. You don't have a hover over so that something changes color. So we need to be doing this in a more generic means. I've even said that if you write it really generically, you could have the same system through the telephone and a push button. Hello? Oh, it's automated. Okay, I want to check my balance. I can put in my account number. I'm going to put 3 for more information. I push 9 for my balance. Okay, I can do that over my phone. I can do that in person. I can do that over my tablet. So there's lots of ways. The question is, can you design this generically so that you can do this over many interfaces? But now I want to practice. On your handout, you have another section. And I want you to get together with that same pair and help me with some requirements. I would like to start a company, a balloon and blimp company, because I think that that's the future of air travel. It's very convenient. It's a small company, I don't have a lot of blips yet. I'm only going from Des Moines to the Bahamas. That's all I got so far, I've only got one blip. I'm going to have online ticket ordering, and I'm imagining people are going to use their phone or a tablet. They're going to see a commercial and just going to order right there. That's what I'm hoping for. And I want you guys to give me a requirement in this give and when then structure about how that works. Does that make sense? I'm seeing a couple nodding heads. Okay, I'm going to give you guys about 4 minutes to get with the groups and to write a give and when then. Are you ready? Get set? Talk amongst yourselves. Are we ready? Okay, so I've stolen this piece of paper from someone who shall remain nameless. So if you want to watch me hand it back to them. And this wasn't a bad story, but it's a good start. So let's see how we did. And this said, given a need for air travel from Des Moines to Bahamas. So one of the things I'd like us to do is write this in first person. So given I. I mean, somewhere you're already going to know the context of the role. So use I. Given I want to travel to the Bahamas. Okay? I'd like to see that instead. When we have to purchase tickets online using a tablet or smartphone. I don't really care about the tablet or smartphone right now. They're probably going to do it. But when they want to purchase it online, that's good enough for now. If they want to purchase a ticket. Then we get an email with the tickets. Okay? And I'm not writing exactly their words, there's a few more details. But the point is they said, okay, so given I want to fly, when I purchase online, then I get an email. So that makes sense. I'm probably going to have a couple things before then. So given I want to travel, when I go to the website, I'm going to pick a date. And the system's going to confirm my date or show me the date up in the header, or I don't know, do something to indicate what date I picked. And then I'm going to enter how many passengers I have, 1 or 3 or 27. How many people want to go to the Bahamas with me? That blimp doesn't hold that many. We're going to crash. Sorry. So if we're going to do that, then how many did we, how many tickets am I purchasing? And then as one group said, I said, this all sounds really good that you allow them to print their tickets right there, but you haven't asked for their credit card yet. As an owner of this small company, I'm never going to be able to afford a second blimp if you don't charge the first one. Okay, so think about this. Were you design agnostic? So who thinks they did a pretty good job of writing that can be used whether on the web or let's say on the internet, on a browser or the phone? So some people think they did pretty good there. Did you use natural language or did you use technical terms? People say yeah. I think yeah means they use natural language. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Was everything in business terms? Say yeah, no question.
Yes.
Yes. I said it's a yeah, no. It someone says yes. I'm not sure you guys are good with instructions. Okay. So I want to dig in, and I'll return this piece of paper in a minute, to the difference between that and examples. Because this is how you do your initial communication. This is written at a level that grammar can understand. But frankly, developers and testers need more. They want proof that it works. That proof comes from examples. So examples amplify what we know. They point out the holes. So, in other words, let's say I'm trying to run a report. If I'm on the screen, when I run a report, then I hit the run button, then I get a report. Well, what happens if it's a monthly report and I try to run it on the 27th? Ooh, should be a different example for that. Something should happen if I run it on the 30th, if it's the last day of the month, or maybe I should only run this on the 1st, or maybe I'm only allowed to run it one time. So there are examples that flesh out that requirement, and they point out the holes. So when you're talking to James, sitting in this cube and say, and what else happens and what goes wrong, he will give you examples of what else happens and what goes wrong. Those things are really good to capture because they're going to amplify what we already know. And they make those requirements provable. So I said testable earlier when I said what's a good requirement. So that's how we test them, is with these examples. The examples are not the exact same thing as a requirement. They're the things that prove the requirement. It makes it real. A very useful thing to have is a requirement that we can test and prove that it works. I've been on a project where I worked with this, and the business users actually developed an Excel spreadsheet for the examples. We'd have a conversation, and we spend a lot of time on the whiteboard, a lot of time writing and asking questions, and how's this work, and what else can go wrong? And they would say, okay, let's walk through it with numbers. We talked about it in general, let's actually talk through it with numbers. And sometimes after we talk through it with all the numbers, we build our spreadsheet like, you know what, we said how this works, it really doesn't. Have you ever had two stakeholders on the same project where they said different things? Almost everyone started chuckling with that. These two guys were killing me. And I didn't realize it at first, in part because I was just writing generic given when then without examples. And I get to the examples, and one guy would say the answer should be 400, and one would say the result is 500. I don't know how math works where you guys are, but apparently in Houston, some math works where sometimes it's 400, sometimes it's 500. And I'm like, no, that can't be right. It can't just be a Houston special. So we had to go get his boss, or their boss. And we go into Pat's office, and Pat would explain to us what reality was supposed to be. These guys regularly disagreed, and you didn't realize it until you had numbers and examples that proved it. Oof. Once we finally figured this out, which took a few months, things went a lot smoother. If there's confusion, make sure you have an example. If the examples don't match, make sure you have a Pat. So let's make some examples. And with this one, I'm going to give you in fact, let's just do this as a group. But with this one, so given I've selected a date to purchase tickets, and I submit my selection, then I receive confirmation for each seat. Sounds like a pretty good one, right? So I've got tickets and confirmation. So in this one, I hit submit. Well, I hit submit. It may say, you know, buy your tickets now or do whatever. But then it says, congratulations, you're ready for your trip. Your confirmation numbers are boom, 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 whatever that number is. Make sense? Okay. So this is an example that proves this. I selected a date to purchase tickets. I submit my selection. I receive a confirmation. You can have more complicated examples. Maybe there's more than one of us. Maybe there's two people purchasing on the same day. I've got a whole lot of sales. So, on my January 15th flight, it's the inaugural flight. I don't know if I'd recommend you guys flying the very first time I take this out. We're going to have a couple things here. So I have two different people purchase this, and I can do an automated test for this now. And when I do a test for this, I can prove that it works. And when I prove that it works, well, Bob's your uncle, and everybody's happy. This is pretty easy to see. I know that this is all going to work now. This gets into automated testing and testing tools. Because there's automated testing tools for this, I know more developers who understand given when then than business analysts. Never have I been so upset with us as a profession as to find out the developers are taking our gobbledygook, and in my mind I'm using a swear word, requirements, and rewriting them so they're understandable and testable. That is a failure on our part. If the developers are going to take our garbage and make it useful and valuable. Oh, I'm ashamed. Okay, I need to calm down. So stories are about what's happening. And how we got here. There's a story, there's a sequence of actions and events and responses. Not everything goes into a story. There are times, and I use this is primarily an agile technique. It doesn't have to be. You can write anything this way. I give in feedback using this technique. Can I pick on someone? Shout out your name and I'll pick on you. Andrew? Feedback. Andrew, when we were in the meeting this morning with the stakeholder, give it. And you laughed at the stakeholder's tie. When? Then he clammed out for the rest of the meeting. Given when then? I've just given him feedback on some context and an action and a result. Now, in this case, I'm going to ask Andrew not to make fun of the guy's tie anymore. But you can use given when then all the time. It helps with, sort of helps with feedback. It will help you with your requirements. It can help you with your action plans for what you're going to do next week. So, some things go into these, but not just everything. You can get really detailed. Part of that goes into the examples. Part of it is if there's no value there, don't put it in there. If the risk is really low, don't put it in there. Testers do something called risk-based testing. They don't test every possible actions. I once wrote a document where we talked about nuclear war and what should happen to this financial system. I thought it was kind of silly, but we have a section there. Because we were writing requirements for everything. But that doesn't make sense. So, if the risk is that low or the consequences are that high, then, you know, there is no system. It was a nuclear bomb. Don't bother with it. So some things, just going behind the scenes. But stories are about understanding. Stories are about making sure that we all get it. Because there's no difference between requirements, good requirements, and understanding. I was asked if I was going to end with this, so it was special. I want you to imagine that those flags are my development team. They're a very good development team. And this podium here, this is my stakeholder. And the traditional job of a business analyst is to take things from here and deliver them, like a translator. I used to use that word, or a scribe, or a requirements monkey, over to those people there. Did I say that out loud? I'm sorry. The point is that our job when we do that is like a ferry boat. You guys ever seen a ferry boat or been on a ferry boat? Like, ferry boats are kind of long and flat and cars going back. So the requirements go on my back. And I gather requirements, and more requirements, and more requirements. And when I think I'm full, toot toot! It's not fast. Ferry boats aren't about speed. When I get over here to my team, I unload them. All those requirement cars come off. I am one of the lucky ones. I've got a really good team of developers and testers. Do you know what those people do? They try to understand the requirements, and they get together and have conversations. And do you want results? Questions. Questions. They have questions. Okay. Let's load up the questions. Oh, they got another one. Hold on. Toot toot. Ferry boats have like obstacles like motorboats running away or sailboats. For me, I've got a stakeholder on vacation. I just got to wait. Toot toot. After I unload my questions, do you know what I get? I get answers.
If you're lucky.
So this is what happens. This is what happens to us. In the traditional requirements role, we have something, and we take it over and have a question. We can answer, and a question, and answer, and a question, and answer, and that's what we do. We run back and forth like a trolley boat. I'm here to tell you there's a better way. We can use this to build understanding. Use stories to build understanding. So you stretch out between the two sides. Use a common language so we can talk to each other. Become a bridge so things can go back and forth. Where times you don't even have to be in the room. Oh my gosh, they can talk to each other. And we can build something that's valuable. Be a bridge between your stakeholders and your teams. Thank you very much.